Player Development Pod family, how are you? Thank you so much for supporting y'all. We over 200 subscribers. You know what's crazy though? About 70% of you all watching this are not subscribed. So click that subscribe button right now. But it's season four, y'all, of the Player Development Pod. And I am so excited to have Evin Norman of Next Level Branding here. A lot of you all towards the end of season 3, we talked about the player development conference. You know, I have a couple episodes about that. A lot of the speakers from season 2, or our guests, they were speakers at the conference, y'all. The player development conference was a huge success. And a lot of that is attributed to Evin Norman, Next Level Branding, her company, and what she was able to do for us in event management. So some of y'all listened to the episode of why I'm not in player development. I talked to you, I'm super creative. So I had all these ideas. I was like, hey, we're going to do a player development conference. It's going to look like this. It's going to look like that, right? Got all this stuff on here. And we'll probably do an episode with me, Evan, Ali, and Lauren so y'all can see the background. But anyway, I had all this stuff there and it's like, all right, how are we going to do it? And so Evan came along as the official sponsor. So excited she came along. We worked together at KU, and I admire, the way she did things, how she went about it, her work ethic. We're recording today on Black Women in Sports Day, so congratulations to you, Evan, and to all the Black women in sports. But let me stop. I don't want to take too much away, but if you attended the conference, I'm going to pause right now so we can give a round of applause for Evan. And go into the show notes right now. Pause the video, go into show notes, and follow all the socials. Okay. Now let me stop there. Let me not take too much away from you, Evan. I want you to introduce yourself. Please tell those listening, our player development pod family, our player development potties, uh, who you are.
My name's Evin Norman. I am the founder and CEO of Next Level Branding. I started out, like Ed said, we worked together, but going back, I graduated from Auburn University with a bachelor's in marketing. I also ran track at Auburn. I was on the women's track and field team as a hurdler. I worked in uh, business and insurance for a little while, and then I went back and got my master's in sport management at Jacksonville State University. And then from there, I had to do an internship, got blessed with an opportunity to work for the University of Alabama at Birmingham in their return season in their recruiting department. From there, I did 2 seasons with them and then ended up getting a job at the University of Kansas under Coach Les Miles, which I met Ed and some great people. And then from there, I went to the University of Missouri, still worked in recruiting. And after about 2 years, decided that I needed a change. It's basically where the desire for recruiting started, my desire to, when enjoyment changed, and I took some time off and I was able to regain that enjoyment. And so now I have my own business, which actually was what the original plan was. We could go into that later, but that was the original plan. So I believe things happen for a reason, and it just got me back on track for what I want to do.
Awesome. I appreciate it. I still remember I first met you. I want to say it was your first day. We were on an official visit and we were at 6 Mile Chop House in Lawrence. And I was just talking to you and I was just like, I was impressed that you took notes on like your first day on the job and you're like, hey, you're like, you know, improvements, right? Because I think some people take solutions as jabs, but you're literally like, this could, maybe next time we can do this. Next time we can do this. Tomorrow we can do it. I mean, literally first day, and I was like, wow. That blew me away. I'm like, my first day, I was trying to figure out how to walk in snow and different things like that. But I remember we were on that bus right in front of 6 Mile Chop House. 6 Mile Chop House. Anybody listening to this right now, just go ahead and sponsor the podcast. I'll be there to help y'all out. All right. So appreciate you giving us a rundown of your career and all the steps. And that some people may see that as your what and how you got to where you are now. But what's your why? I mean, you had great opportunities and you talk about, stepping away and creating your own. What is that why behind that?
So I actually went back, I want to say last year, went back into one of my journals and I saw that I wrote down high school athletes need PR too. It goes back to when I was in high school as well as college. There were a lot of top talented athletes, both boys and girls, that didn't get the opportunity to go to college or either go to college in sports or when they were playing, they didn't really get a lot of exposure like they should have. So, Next Level Branding works with both high school athletes, but then also when player development comes in, where you all help with the transition for athletes when they're in college level, whether they're playing playing professional or whether they go on to a professional career entrepreneurship. My goal and the purpose of my business is to basically walk that vision out. So you all help them create the vision and give them the opportunities. And then I come in with my brand management services to help them. And high school is helping the high school athletes get more attention because, like I told you, name, image, and likeness wasn't big back then.
Hmm.
But again, high school athletes weren't getting as much exposure unless they had like where my school was, unless you were like a 5 star,
Right.
you didn't have schools coming as much. You had they were like 3 stars, and they had the little small schools. And we had a coach that knew how to get the schools, but you have everybody that doesn't have that. So that's why I started like wanting to work with high school athletes to help them get that exposure because I believe you don't necessarily have to always go to a Power 5 school. As
Hmm.
long as you go to a school that's going to give you a free education, that's a blessing there, as well as it gives them a why. It gives them something to want to
Right.
hope to keep on going. And that keeps, and even if they don't go to college, knowing what they want to go into, whether it's a trade or like I told you, being an entrepreneur, that's so big nowadays. Just
Right.
helping athletes understand that and get that awareness.
No, it's I think what you said is like really really big, especially with high schoolers now. You start to see some of them in the recruiting process, some of the choices they made on social media coming back or different things like that. So it is a trickle down effect. It's I'm passionate about making sure those choices are right, and you are too. So appreciate what you're doing on the landscape because I honestly believe that's the next big move in player development and like you said, PR and just there because it's such a greater mass and we talk about high school and others, just that transition happens all the time and getting people to their next level. Come on. Is something that's necessary, in life. So now this question is a question. I don't even think I asked you this, but when you did it, but it's a question I have like what? So I put out the player development conference, I think I put it out December 13th or something like that. And then you hit me up like, hey, I want to be the official sponsor. And I was like, cool. I already knew you were great at what you did. You gave me a presentation that blew me out the water. So y'all listening, I mean, hey, the presentation was unreal. I knew it was going to be great. It was unreal. So like, but why? Why did you want to be an official sponsor? This is my first time answering this question. The why.
So, like, Ed, I've watched you with your passion for player development. And then remember, even when I was working at one of the schools, my last school, there were some things that they gave me. I was able to like, hey Ed, what I need to do on this because I was like, I'm not in player development, but they're giving me these tasks, and I have to do this type of event. Well, not event, but this type of activity with the players and everything. And I know it's something else I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you helped me with that, and I wasn't excited when I found out that you were no longer in player development with the university. But that's why I was like, when I heard you were doing a podcast, I was like, okay, good. He's still doing it. He's still keeping himself moving. He's keeping himself moving. So then hearing that you were doing the conference, and I'm always the big person where I'm like, oh, they're giving back. I want to be able to support. So that's the thing. I always I like support. When I don't think people knew, but at Kansas, and I told them it was no offense to anywhere else, because at UAB I had my family too. But at Kansas,
Right.
we were like, I guess because we were all like younger age, we had a
Yeah.
family. And so when you see
Back
a family,
hallway.
when you see a family doing something, you want to make sure you support. So that was my thing. I was like, it's an opportunity to help you. It was an opportunity for me to get my brand out there as well. But I was like, it's gonna. I said if he wants to do it, and I told you, I was like, I'm gonna send him a message. If he don't respond, it's okay. But I was like, I'm gonna see because it's like I really want to be able to help him get this passion out because I don't want to sit back and be like, dang, I could have helped Ed and I didn't help
Yeah.
Ed. So
No, we appreciate you coming on. I can't tell you enough the testimonials. Man, if I knew more about editing and video, I'd have testimonials just pop up right now. But like one of the best testimonials I got was from my guy Sam Khan. Shout out to Sam Khan who was there from the Athletic. He was like, "Man, you would have fooled me if you told me." He said, "If I didn't know you, I wouldn't have thought this was your first one." So I was just like, "Man, it was just incredible." And I think Lauren King brought it up in our post meeting, like every virtual thing I've ever been to has a hiccup, and we thankfully we didn't, and a lot of that was like me learning, you just being like, I got it, just just I got it. Just focus on that, and everything worked out, and it was really really good. I keep hearing that from so many attendees. Me and you need to go on a LinkedIn recommendation tour, which I need to get on, but but no, I appreciate you. So for those listening, let's say someone's like the player development conference, what is he talking about? Coming along, official sponsor, whatever it may be. So if you can just give an inside view of what you provided beyond the field and how, what you provided the conference and the attendee, excuse me, of the conference.
So whenever you're doing an event, you always want to have provide your attendees and speakers an experience. With it being virtual, it's hard to give that experience, but honestly, working what we did in COVID with recruiting, I learned how to do that through Zoom. And so that was the whole thing, being able to provide, because right now you were doing it virtual, plans to go in person in the future,
Hey,
and that'll be some
hey,
changes. But
yeah,
I basically came in and helped plan with you to go to basically put your vision into bring your vision into fruition, as well as while providing your audience and speakers an experience, a good experience, but at the same time being able to do everything that you wanted to do that was going to help put the Beyond the Field brand as well as Beyond the Field podcast brand out there in a good light and create more awareness about player development. So that took us where we were meeting sometimes at night, and then sometimes we had a lot of Zoom calls.
yes,
And then sometimes we were doing sponsor meetings, creating a sponsorship packet, pitch deck, and putting that together and meeting with sponsors to talk about like how they will benefit from the player development conference being a sponsor, which that's testimonies too, because there was some
hmm
lot there. I think each sponsor got something from it.
yeah, there's
So,
no doubt.
including myself. But um, just coming in and doing that, as well as like, okay, how do you want to do this? Speaker gifts. How did you want to do that? Like, just coming in and wanting everybody to have some type of experience where they can say, okay, I went to the player development conference and I left with this, or I had this segment on and I left with this. There's still some more things that we're gonna add. So everybody that's watching next year, it'll be different. There'll be
Yeah.
some. There were some things we talked about that I'm excited about too. But it's that's pretty much the event planning, and then the day of was the event management. So I know one time you asked me to introduce myself, and I was busy communicating with the speakers, and so it was
I was like,
it was
well, she's
kind of like,
busy. There she is. Yeah.
first of all, everybody listening, Ed knows. Even me being on a podcast right now is like a big push for me because Ed knows I'm one of the people where it's like, you go front, you go on.
Yeah.
And so that was just my thing. I was like, Ed, you got it. You can show your face. They don't need to see me. So I showed my face a couple of times, but a lot of times with event management, I mean with events, you want the people. My whole thing was I wanted you to be able to focus on your speakers. I didn't want you having to be concerned about a fire here or this person, different things that come up. So whereas everybody saw it and it was smooth, they don't know what was happening behind the
Yeah.
scenes. Me, only me, Ali, and Lauren knows what was happening behind the scenes and in the group chats and all that. So
Right.
that was just the whole plan, making it where they saw your face, you were able to still handle it, and you got your breaks. But our speakers were able to come up, everything. That was the whole plan. Just creating it so that on the day of, you didn't have to be concerned about that.
No, I appreciate it. I was like a mallard duck, just going and underneath the water. Y'all are like figuring it all out. But no, that was really good. I want to talk about some of the successes um, that I saw. You could talk about successes that you had or what it looked like for you. So for me, it was first time doing it, no hiccups. We had international speakers. Everybody showed up. It was, I was a little nervous because international. Everybody showed up. We had over 120, 30 people, I believe, for first ever conference. I was at a point, I told y'all one meeting, I was like, if we could just get more attendees than speakers. We had 27 speakers. I was like, if we could just get to 30 attendees, that would be great. We had, like you said, 4 sponsors for the first time. What else? Oh, jobs. Like people got interviews like from that. Somebody got a raise. Shout out to my guy Alexander Martin. He literally called me. He's like, I got a raise. He's like, now this is all Alexander's work. I'm not gonna put it on the conference, but he said he's like, man, I don't know about the conference, but so whatever, we'll take that. But Alex, that's you. But yeah, so those are some successes I had, and then just in general, just like getting that group together because it's just so tough. And that was my goal. Like we talked about, the four goals were for people to grow, network, partner, and possibly get hired. Put them right here. And seeing that happen where people grew, one of the best things I heard was Dr. Lacey Carmen Johnson. She texted me on day 2. She's like, man, I'm in here. They going hard on day 2. Like that's a speaker who did an incredible job on day 1 and she's coming back day 2. So that was incredible, people networking, one person had an interview from someone that they met at the conference, like literally called me. He's like, hey, I met so and so, and because at the conference they heard me speak, I heard them speak. Like there's interviews happening, right? Partnerships, we had that happen, and then going back to the hiring piece where people are like, yeah, and that was just those were successes to me. But what would you say from your lens were some successes of the conference?
One of the pieces, the networking piece, because it was virtual and you still like the networking was going to be a big piece from it. So you have people that come in and they take notes. Okay, great. They have information, but like you said, you wanted people to have hiring. You wanted hiring opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
So networking was a big piece that we added, and I was happy because of how we set it up, how it worked out. Where I was going from room to room, seeing where, especially Alexander.
Mm-hmm.
I was about to say Alex, but Alexander, especially with his room, how they were in there, and he shut us down. What the first
One,
night?
yeah, yeah.
So it was
Shuts
after
down
midnight.
1 a.m. Yeah,
So it was just
yeah.
seeing that how people were staying on just to talk and connect with them. So Alexander had a room going, TB had a room going. Like we had a lot of people that stayed on and came on both times. So we had the first night and then we had the networking section the next night. So that was one great thing that I think really was a success because in virtual, it just depends on the conference. You in the schedule because we all know that people are busy. Like that was the thing. We were respectful of everybody's time, but being able to have them stay on to or come back to do a networking session that just showed how you all are passionate about player development, as well as the attendees were really wanting to get more information and talk and learn from them. So that was one of the things that I said. That was one of the things that was successful.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. When you say, I didn't think about that. On day 2, Dr. Lacey came back on. Ira Childress from LSU was in Senegal. He went in the morning and jumped back on to take a room. Savannah Bailey had just went from like Cape Town to Florida to Portland, I think at the Nike deal back. And she could have easily went to sleep. I probably would have went to sleep, but it's like that made me think like now that you mentioned it, it's like, man, we're on to something. And it just reminded me like these people are passionate. Like this is a great field of people that want to help. Now, those for you all who are like have a feeling of FOMO, hey, we'll have it next year. You don't want to miss because it's hard to pull those people together. Football season is tough. They want to help out as much as possible, but hey, this is the place. This is the place. I know networking was a success and everybody saw that. Everybody who attended enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. You enjoyed it. But what were some things that Next Level Branding put in place to create successes at the conference?
So one of the main things is ease of access. I wanted where if you put out there that the conference was up, registration was up, all they had to do was click and go there. And that's one of the things I'm happy we were able to do the first day. So when you released, I was like, okay, this is happening. The next was like I told you, experience, making sure it was just simple little things where it's like nobody there were gaps and periods where we had to take a break, but they could still talk and still message each other. And, the team, Ali and Lauren, was still interacting, making sure it was a blessing that you allowed me to use your interns, to allow their work interns to work with me. But they were a blessing because I said, okay, we need to do this. And they jumped in, okay, let's do this. They came up with different ideas on how we can do things from their perspective. Okay, how would somebody new enter in the field? What would they want to see? What would they want to hear?
Mm-hmm.
So I was thankful for that. But we wanted it where we can handle people that were new, didn't know anything about player development, as well as those that were in player development.
Mm-hmm.
And those sessions, which was Lamont Winston, that was a good session. The things he talked about in that one, I know you did a podcast with him, but Mr. Wilson, if you are listening, you should probably get your own book, have a book written about it, because
Yeah.
it was a lot of vital information that he put out. But
So much. Yeah.
things like that, where, like I told you, the main thing was everybody could come, even like you said, Dr. Lacey said she was taking notes. It's always where they're growing. There's in the player development field, in any field, you should leave a conference feeling like you learned and you got information. Me and you both talked about going to conferences where we felt like, okay, yeah, I went and
Right.
it was okay, or okay, yeah, I actually got something from this one. So that was the thing. I wondered where your conference was like, I got something from this. It was valuable information. I got a connection. I got information. I got to see more. It was just, like I told you, giving them that experience, giving your speakers that experience, giving your audience and your podcast listeners those experience. So even your sponsors those experience, because there
Yeah.
were communications that we were doing with them as well. So
Yes.
planning how seeing, and that's what I guess people don't think about. But even with the sponsor, you have to manage their brand as well, because you're figuring out what's a good opportunity for them to put themselves out, whether it's placement during
Right.
what placement is good for them. Okay, we don't need to put them. It ties in this piece of player
Right.
development. So it was a lot that went into it without giving it away, but
Yeah.
it was that's why I say planning. We did a lot of planning, and we
Yeah.
did a lot of discussions, and we did a lot. Yeah, that'll work, or nah, this is not gonna work. But it was it was fun. That's what I say. The day of, that was one of the things. I was locked down.
Yeah.
First day, second day, I went to sleep afterwards and was just like, okay, well, we did, we celebrated, and then after that, it was like, okay, I can breathe. But
Yeah.
that was the thing. Just like I told you, making sure your vision was real. You could see it where you could say, okay, this is what I wanted, and I actually did it.
No, I appreciate it. I think, you brought us that, like all the stuff. I think about it now. It's like, oh, we got sponsors, and like literally, we had like a 30-minute meeting on what makes sense, and how do we do this and how do we do that, and then yeah, that celebration at the end, like just being like, wow, this happened, and I just appreciate you coming along with the vision, because I think I say it all the time. My favorite quotes is from Toby Wegway from Houston, Texas. Shout out to Toby, Southwest Houston. That's why A Leaf. I'm from Mo City, but we all good. But he talks about if people get out, if your car is stuck on the side of the road and you get out and start pushing the car, more people are apt to help you as you push rather than you sitting in your car and it's just being there. So like we did some bold stuff. We did some stuff where like I remember the moments I was just like, you call me with something and I'll be like, Evan, I want to do it this way. And then you'd be like, hey, just trust me. I'm like, all right, cool. And then I'll call you and be like, hey, Evan, we got to do it this way. Like, and so it's just like trusting each other and making that happen. So that was really, really good. So now you talked about, we got a few more questions here for you. And then I might do a little rapid fire, maybe do a little rapid fire. Tell us the importance. You talked about it a little bit, but tell us the importance of event management and event operations. So maybe there's people like myself who are like, hey, we're going to do it. We're going to put an event together, and for they are the content people. They are the people who have the sources that, what I'm trying to say. Like they have all the information and they need to be worried about the information. So how do you tell those people, the importance of event management and event operations?
So it's just like what you said. You have the information. A person could be, they have the information and the resources. You want to be focused on that. You want to be able to put the information, go find the information, know how to do that. But you also want somebody to come in and be able to plan it out. Know the resources that you need. Okay, this is the platform we need to do it on, or this is the venue, or hey, we need to negotiate this this deal with this place or this vendor, different things, because It's good. Some people can do it on their own, and so I'm not knocking anybody that has done it on their own. But it takes off. It gives you a relief. It takes off some
Amen.
stress because you can go and talk to like where you were talking, communicating with the speakers beforehand, like bringing them on. We were working in the background, basically. Okay, this is how this day, and this is how this is going to do. This is like researching different platforms you want to use. What's the best way, and then bringing it to you, and you presenting the information to you, and you just had to say, okay, yeah, this will work, or okay, no, I don't want to do that. You gave yes or no. So
Hmm.
basically, I do all the lead work. Even if I had to speak, like if I had to go and get the speakers, I can do that as well. But my thing is with a person that's wanting to have an event, I would rather you focus on your expertise, which is your
Hmm.
knowledge and what the event is about. And I will make it the event so that people, your knowledge is basically shown to the audience and people are coming. They're going to come to see you anyways. That's the thing. They're coming to see you, but I want to make sure that their experience is good because if you're focused on, okay, well, this person, things happen. We know.
Hmm.
Everybody's not going to be happy. And then some people are having great experience and then some people may have a little trouble, but if you have to take the time out to actually go and make sure this is correct with this person, that takes away from you making sure that your content or your product, service, or knowledge is is delivered well. I'm making sure that they're taken care of as well as your delivery is good, but you're the one that they're there to see. So my thing is, like I said, in recruiting, my whole thing was the
Right.
coaches are going to shine. I'll talk
Right.
to the family, get them there, make sure the family is having a good time. But anything that's done, it's the coach.
Right.
Any experience that they have, it's going to come back on the coach. So my
Right.
job is to make sure that it's done well so that the coach looks well.
Right.
Same thing. My job is to make sure my client, if, if it's a good or bad experience, it's not going to come back on me all the time. It's going to make them look bad. So
Right.
my job is to make sure the experiences went well. So that's the thing with you. My job was to make sure that the conference went well because if it didn't, that was going to be your name. Now I would have got chewed out, not chewed out, but I would have got, been like, okay, I can't work with Evin anymore. But that's your brand.
Right.
So making sure your brand is displayed and, like I say, developed and enhanced, but just making sure things go well. That's why I say planning. If don't try to do it on your own.
Yeah.
You need a
Yeah.
team.
Yeah.
Even if you are still the forefront, like the leader of the team, you still need a team to help with
Yeah.
planning. Because, like I say, you can't be everywhere,
Right.
and you have to be able to delegate. That's something that everybody has to develop and learn to do more. Because a lot of times we're so used to, and that's another conversation. But a lot of times we're in situations where we have to do it ourselves. So we
Right.
figure out how to do it ourselves. But a lot of times things can come up where we can't do it, or it's not. We barely made it through, or
Yeah.
we're exhausted right afterwards. So
Yeah.
being able to have your team to come in and plan and develop and manage your event, so that way you can shine and you can look good. That's what I do. And that's one of the
Yeah.
reasons why I recommend for any event, somebody get an event planner or, event planner, whether it's, and see, that's the thing. It can be day of, you can have somebody come in and plan the whole event and you still do it, operate it yourself, or you can have somebody that does both, like what I did with you, or you can have somebody that does just day one. It looks easy, but when you get in the midst of it, it can be a headache. So with all that, hire somebody or find a team to help you plan it and manage it.
Yeah. I would say that because a lot of people could look at the conference like, oh, you jumped on Zoom and y'all just made it happen. And it's like, so before I had my meeting with you, honestly, that was my thought. And then you had this breakdown. I was like, I didn't think about that. 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 And it just reminds me of something that you did when we worked at KU. And it was so small, but it was so big because at a previous university, one of my biggest pet peeves on official visits when we're walking around with parents is opening doors. And it's just because this door opens this way, this door opens that way. Then you catch a coach frustrated or a staff member frustrated. And so then we went to door stops, but then you got 14 different looking door stops, right? But then I remember what you put in place with the, I think we had interns, and having interns hold the door. It's another face, and they held it where they weren't in the way. Hey, how you doing? Or they get to see that. Hey, let's slow down. Mom's a little back. Instead of mom dropped her purse or her pen, we're walking. Mom's back there. There's somebody. There's a person who can say, "Hey, they're right here," rather than, "Okay, we go in this room for photos," and mom's in the middle of the facility. Like, where am I at? Because it's a maze, right? And it was just something so small that just was like, I was like, thank you. Cause that is like that was one of my I never realized it till my biggest pet peeve was opening doors. You never know who's on the other side. You open the door and you hit the track coach, or, this door is locked, or you open the door and there's construction. Like somebody can be like, hey, let's go this door, whatever. Right. So once again, that's the stuff that people, if you have an event, there are certain things that you may not see because you're just so locked in on. For me, I was locked in on like what the deliverables. That's probably the best way to put it. And, there were other things, the infrastructure, the functions, the systems that you came in and it blew my mind. I was like, I did not think about that. So I will always have a team. And we locked in with Next Level Branding because that was, I just thought, I was like, yeah, I'm just here. I just send a Zoom link. Everybody shows up. No, that was, it's not as easy as it sounds.
It's
All
in the
right. So
details.
you said what now?
It's in the details. That's the thing.
Yes, yes,
That's
yes.
why I told you,
Okay.
like, you
Also,
have to, you want a first class experience. So that's why, like, I would have, hey, you open the doors are open when you walk up versus
mm-hmm,
somebody having to come. It's just kind of delivering an experience.
right. And it's just like, think about that, right? Let's say I'm driving and some parent, most parents are probably getting their kids the time we would want them official visits right after work or they're leaving work. And one thing we always talk about, we never know which parent, who's taking off work, who's on salary, who's not, who's losing money, whatever it may be. So a parent, or maybe a long drive, and they're kind of annoyed per se, right? And then they walk up to this facility and they got to knock on the door, and it's like, man, like, it's just one more. You just added fuel to a possible fire. Maybe not a fire there, but possibly. But so now this is the opportunity where we dive into you talked in general about what you provide, but this is a breakdown of what you provide and I call it an engagement, but what your services look like for those who who bring you on, because there's people listening to this podcast who will bring you on. So, if you can just give us the full Next Level Branding, what you provide and what an engagement service looks like, this is your chance.
So recently we updated the services. I am providing brand management services. That's one thing that you basically identified when it was like, Evan, you're doing it already. I was pretty much just
Mm-hmm.
kind of working with people from the beginning, but you were saying like I come in and I'm handling all of it. So we are providing brand management services, and that's whether you are in college athletics, if you are a sports organization, or if you're an athlete, even former athletes. I have the opportunity to work with some former athletes with their brand. And then we also provide marketing and public relations services. So that's getting your brand out there, whether it's through social media, it can be with media. I previously did a media campaign, marketing and media campaign for an organization. And then also event planning and event management, which we did for Beyond the Field Player Development Conference. So with that, it could be a conference, or it can be if you have a charity organization, you could have or a foundation, you can have an event, like sometimes there's events in Christmas, back to school drive, or a camp. So different aspects of that where, like I said, the athlete brand is basically, I'm working throughout your brand. There's several different ways that we can get your brand out there. And it's like I told you, marketing and promotions of yourself, or whether it's the event planning and management.
Gotcha.
And
Appreciate
my overall thing is giving you that first class service and making sure you have, like I say, making sure you have experience even when you're working with me, a good experience. Because the thing is, one of my cohort instructors reminded me a lot of times we forget that the experience that you give somebody. So even going back to recruiting, you always want to give somebody a good experience because they may not get that experience anywhere else, or that's the last time they're going to get an experience
it.
like that. You got to remember, not everybody goes to not everybody plays high school sports. So you want to make sure with high school athletes, they're getting a great experience. When you go with college athletes, everybody's not going to go professional. So you want to make sure they have a great experience. And so it's just making sure at every level, even with the professionals, like you want to make sure that you give everybody a great experience no matter where they are in life.
So I've seen you crush it virtually, and I can't, like you said, you mentioned earlier, can't wait to see you, uh, crush it in person with Player Development Conference. But you have done stuff in person, and so what does that look like when you're coming on, and someone says, "Hey, Next Level Branding, we're holding this conference, we're holding this summit, we're holding this symposium, we're holding this event, this charity event, whatever it may be." What does that look like?
So for the events, in-person events, so the thing with that, like you remember, I told you I'm big on like experience, memorable experience, unique experience, first class experience. So not just when your audience steps in or your speakers actually get to the place from the beginning of the notification. I want to make sure they have a good experience from being notified about the event all the way up to the end of the event and post event. So it's particular things that I put in place to make sure that happens, but your experience doesn't start right at the conference. So, take for example, in person event, somebody doesn't get their registration confirmation. That's a concern because that person is now arriving to your event and does not know whether they will be admitted or not. So, you have to have a plan of action of how to deal with that. You have somebody, you want to make sure even with the mistakes that they're handled correctly because you can make a mistake. A person could be in the wrong, but who's going to get the most attention? Because all
Mhm.
they have to do is go out on social media. Like you said, you even mentioned this previously. All they have to do is go on social media and make a comment. And if you react a certain way, your brand is the one that's going to get the basically get the hit.
Mhm.
They may go on. Now you'll have some people that defend you, but you don't want that. It's just simple ways of making sure like anything like that is handled properly, as well as another in-person event could be an item could be just making sure all the information, knowing, thinking ahead of time, like frequently asked questions, things that may happen. So one of the things that's why I told the speakers, I overly communicate with them because
Mhm.
I want to make sure they understand it. If they have questions, they feel like they can ask questions. I don't want anybody to feel like, "Ooh, I don't think I could talk to her or I can talk to Ed." If you have
Mhm.
questions, ask. Just making sure so that before they feel comfortable, they come in, they have a comfortable experience. If the issue arises, it's handled in the proper way that still makes them feel comfortable. Or if it cannot be fixed, it's basically something is basically we may not be able to fix the problem, but we have a resolution. So
Mhm.
again, your audience is who makes you, uh,
Mhm.
like your listeners right now. So your listeners are the people that make the
Shout out to the
beyond
listeners.
the make the beyond the field big. So you have to make sure you engage in them. You could have certain desires or feelings, but you have to make sure you keep them in mind all the time. So that's why I say with the event planning in person, you have to make sure it's not just your focus or, oh, well, I like things this way. Well, you may have this list, you have this target audience. Just I'm going into marketing, but you have
Right.
this audience that meets these features or have these type of desires or things like that. We have to make sure we accommodate them. So because again, they are the ones that make you. So well, I'm sorry. They are the ones that help build your brand.
Yes.
I was about to say I'm about to go into the gospel and say God make you, but
No,
but
yeah.
that's the whole thing. Just making sure my biggest thing is first class experience or a very memorable experience, good memorable experience from before they step foot on your step foot in your event to where even later. It's like even just the thing of thank you for coming.
Right.
It's simple things like that.
Oh, I appreciate it. I think one thing I appreciate you was telling me I was kind of like, I want to write thank you cards. Like, absolutely do it. Like, if that's what you wanted. Like, I remember because it's just like, even that encouragement for me was huge. I was like, I'm really thankful I'm gonna get cards. You're like, yeah, do it. This would be great engagement. So appreciate you for that. Now, how can our player development potties, potty yaddy, let me stop. All right. How can our player development potties locate you, find you, follow you, and support you?
My website is Next Level. That's NXTLEVEL branding BRANDING.com. And then on Instagram, it's the same NXT Level Branding. And LinkedIn, you can find me Evin Norman. Uh, also have a LinkedIn page on the Next Level Branding and on Facebook. But the best places to hit me would be in Instagram or leave a message through our website.
Awesome. All that information will be in the show notes. Remember, when you type in next level, you're taking out the E. It's like you're taking, but she's taking you to the next level. So she's taking Evan from this level to the next level. So NXT. Evan, thank you so much. I appreciate you so much for helping out with the player development conference. We really couldn't have done that without you. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Really appreciate it. And there were days where I was like, and you're like, no, we're gonna push through. So I appreciate you and excited to see where this conference goes, as we will be attached at the hip with Next Level Brandon. So thank you so much. Thank you for coming on. But testimonial, literally, I kid you not, this thing would have been good because the people were there. We had the content, right? But I like that a podcast episode is good. But this event was groundbreaking. It was memorable. I still get people hitting me up about it today. One of the craziest things, I was at a conference and I got hit up by 20 people who did not go, who talked about how great it was. And that is a testament to Evin Norman and Next Level Brandon. So if you're thinking about it, you got an event, whatever it is, trust me, she can handle it. So Evan, thank you so much. Have a great day. And thank you for being on the pod.
Thank you again, Ed.